Hello friends, welcome back. We will be discussing about SMTP in this particular module. SMTP or Simple Mail Transfer Protocol is one of the very old protocols of internet, one of the oldest protocols of internet, which is basically designed to send mail over the internet. What does it do, how it works is the theme of this topic. Let us begin with the email system and the sending part. You can see that when the user sends the mail, there is something called user agent which interacts with it, and then the mail is sent to an area called spooling area, and there is an SMTP client running in the background continuously looking at the spooling area. So, whenever there is a mail inserted by user agent, this SMTP client pick up that mail from here and send it to the server. Now, that is the sending part. The receiving part, at the other end, the service web, in fact it is SMTP server, receives this mail here and delivers it to the mailbox of the user, and user, the other hand, the receiver actually reads from this mailbox using another protocol. Okay. So, this are two things which describe the mail system. The first thing is asynchronous system. SMTP is asynchronous. The meaning of asynchronous is that when sender sends, receiver is not there to read. See, the receiver may not be there. You probably have sent hundreds of mails without really knowing whether the receiver is there on the other end. You just send mail. Okay. And when you read the mail, you do not expect the sender to be there on the other side. That is what I mean by asynchronous. They are not synchronous, and this is the uniqueness of this particular protocol. Unlike other web, for example, when browser accesses the web server, both of them will have to be online, they will have to be communicating, they will be talking to each other. To handle this problem, in fact, asynchronous is one of the most critical thing that SMTP has to address. So, it has designed two tier system. In one tier, there is an SMTP server running, continuously running. So, when you open your mail client, it is usually an SMTP client, will talk to that server, delivers your mail there, and whenever the other party, the receiver, logs in, will use some other protocol, normally POP3 or IMAP, and again get the SMTP server has stored the mail in his own mailbox, and this server, this particular user will use a POP3 or IMAP server to access his own mailbox. So, this is a two tier system which is very different or something which is very unique in this case. So, here it is talking about this is a two tier system, and we have seen that there is a spooling for outgoing mail as well. A mail actually is consisting of three different components. The first component is called user agent, something which accepts mail from the sender and send it across, or at the other end accepts the mail and show that to the user and show many other options as well. So, that is the first component. The second component is called mail transfer agent. Now, here is a client, here is a server, the mail transfer agent picks up the mail from this place and deliver it to the other end. So, that is called mail transfer agent, is the second component. The third component is mail itself. Okay. So, mail, obviously, when somebody writes a client, somebody else writes a server, mail will have to be in a typical specific standard form. Okay. Otherwise, it will be difficult for anybody to understand what is being sent. Okay. Now, let us look at a mailing process where one person called Lara at abcict.org sending a mail to somebody else called Gail at obs.com. Okay. These are two names which we are going to use, one is a sender, the other one is a receiver. So, it begins with Lara invoking user agent to compose a mail. Okay. Then user agent sends the mail to local mail client or SMTP mail client or ISP's mail client, depending on whether user agent is using a Yahoo like mail. Yahoo is a web mail. So, when you do that, it goes to a web mail. Okay. Otherwise, it will go to this thing, local mail client. Okay. Now, message transfer agent takes over, local ISP mail client will construct a TCP connection to the obs.com, say from abcict.org, a TCP connection to obs.com is established. Okay. So, TCP does that job. We have already seen how TCP does that. Once that is done, both of the parties, party obs.com is the receiving party, abcict.org is the sending party. They introduce each other, they exchange mails, and they use human like communication process. Okay. We will see how what I mean by human like. And after, okay, in the beginning obviously the sender sends all the mails to obs.com, but it is also possible that OBS might have some mails for abcict. So, after first phase gets over, both parties reverse roles, and then obs.com sends back mails for abcict.org if there is. Okay. Once that is done, the Gale's mailbox will have the mail for him, and once he has that thing, Gale may invoke his user agent as his own ledger and view his mails using another protocol. We have seen that that protocol is POP3 or IMAP. Okay. The first phase, as I said, this happens in two different phases. The first phase is shown here. First phase, sender is sending the mail and it is delivered to recipient's mailbox. Now, that is the first phase. Okay. So, sender interacts with his own user agent, generates mail, and message transfer agent takes over, establishes TCP connection to message transfer agent at the recipient and send a mail over, and message transfer agent at the recipient store that mail to specific mailbox of the recipient. Okay. So, that is the first phase. In the second phase, okay, SMTP server at obs.com delivers, okay, this is again the first phase, is that Lara is sending to this guy. Okay. Now, earlier we had a generic description, now this is specific about our own mail. So, Lara's user agent, Lara picks up, it provides the mail details, it constructs that mail, runs an SMTP client as abcict.org, communicates with SMTP server at obs.com. Obviously, these two communicate via a TCP connection. So, mail is sent over that TCP connection and delivered to Giles mailbox. Now, that is the first phase. The second phase, this is already done. So, SMTP server at obs.com has copied the content to Giles mailbox. Now, Guile do what? Will start a POP3 client, communicate POP3 servers at obs.com. Now, this guy may be working from his own place and this server may be lying at ISP or his own office or wherever it is. Now, this POP3 server extract content of his mailbox and deliver it to his client. Okay. At some other time, you can see that whenever this mail is delivered, at the same point of time, this guy is not supposed to read that mail, he may read it after a while, he may not even read. Okay. So, it is basically two phase or two tier approach. In case of web mail, the receiver, you delivered the mail to a Yahoo, for example, mailbox. So, what will happen is the receiver's Lara's mailbox, suppose there is a mail for Lara and he has a Yahoo account. So, that server at yahoo.com copies into Yahoo's mailbox, okay, Lara's Yahoo mailbox. So, what Lara do will open a browser instead of a mail client, communicate to the web server, the Yahoo web server in our case here, and it communicates to this mailbox, and mailbox content is converted from text to HTML because that is to be displayed in the browser. So, that conversion is needed, okay. And this job is done again over one more TCP connection, but this TCP connection is not between a mail client and a mail server, but an HTTP client and HTTP server. Okay. So, that is the difference. Now, it is possible to have mailbox aliases. Aliases are other names given to anybody. It is quite possible. For example, I have a few mail accounts, bs3vedi@yahoo.com, bs3vedi@gmail.com, bs3vedi@glsicd.org, bs3vedi@bhushan.trivedi@glsuniversity.ac.in, quite a few. Okay. So, dean at the rate glsuniversity.ac.in. So, point is, I have many mailboxes, and managing all these mailboxes is not a joke. It is very difficult to do. In most cases, what you do it, you run a client like Outlook or Mail of Apple or something, where all the mails are combined into one. You just any mail coming from any that thing source, we copy it there, and again so it becomes very easy for me to manage. I only need to manage one user agent, I do not need to manage many user agents. That is the power of alias expansion. Okay. So, I just all of them are condensed into a single mail interface that I have. The other way around is also possible. For example, we have a Yahoo group for all our past students. So, if I write a mail to that glsict.yahoogroups.com, will reach to all students who are still looking at those mails, who are still possessing those mail IDs. So, that is called alias expansion at the sender's place as well as the receiver's place. Okay. So, let us sometimes a single mailbox is converted to a list, as I said Yahoo group example, and sometimes multiple mailboxes are merged into one. They are known as aliases, and process is known as alias expansion. Okay. For example, Lara at abcic.org is abcic.org domain, which indicates MX record. Okay. Now, this is an MX record, and please understand abcic.org may be also a name of a domain. So, if you try pinging this, you will actually pinging to domain name server and not a mail server. Okay. So, if somebody is sending to Lara at abcic.org, before sending mail, DNS is invoked by SMTP client for the MX record of abcic.org. We have already seen that. So, I will not talk about that further. In fact, group mail addresses Yahoo groups expands into mail list is also talked about. Let us look at this process. Suppose Lara sends a mail and there is an SMTP client. The SMTP client itself expands the address. Suppose the address is of a group, all members of the group is here. So, what does this SMTP client do? Will generate multiple TCP connections, each member is communicated directly through a new TCP connection. Okay. So, mail is sent over new TCP connection to each and every member separately. So, if there are 100 members, this SMTP client in a single shot generate 100 TCP connections and send the copy of the mail on every individual connection separately. Okay. At the other end, if for example, Lara has two mail addresses. So, there is one a director at this place and Lara at this place. So, both of them are managed by the single user agent. Again, this is an example of alias expansion. Okay. When you use mail using web mail, it is also possible. For example, a Yahoo group example that I gave, Lara's user agent sends a mail and the client send it to the Yahoo mail server. Once this Yahoo mail server receives it, alias expansion at that place, because a Yahoo group's case, so it travel as a single mail to Yahoo mail server first, and then it is alias expansion takes place. So, every one of the members will receive an individual mail using a separate TCP connection. Okay. Okay. So, there are two different parts of SMTP standard. First standard talks about how mail is to be constructed, what exactly should be the part of mail. And now, this is very critical, because a client is sending a mail, receiver is receiving it. If the structure is not fixed, probably what I mean by sender's address and the receiver understands it to be a destination address. So, that kind of a problem could occur. So, for that reason, one of the very critical thing SMTP does is to provide this exact structure of a mail, and that is one RFC which defines that. The other RFC which define how two message transfer agents communicate. What should the first message transfer agent sends, what should the other one respond back, and so on and so forth. So, complete process, what are the commands to send, what are the responses which the server can respond with, are defined in the second standard. So, the first one RFC 2821 Okay, it actually is an extension. It began with 821 and there are few revisions. Now we have RFC 2821 is about the message transfer part, the commands and responses. 2822 is about how messages are formatted, and the message formation you can see on the screen. Email format and it is quite analogous to conventional way. Just assume that here is a letter is from, an email is from this guy who works at ABC ICT, this to this guy who is working at OBS. So, here is the letter, this is called envelope, this is from and to names, and here is the content. Okay. So, the SMTP format, this thing, it begins with the outer part is called envelope, inner part is called the message, which is divided into two parts. One is called header, the other is body. Envelope contains senders and receivers mail addresses, header contains names of both of them, body contains the actual mail, and here is the example Lara at this thing and this. Okay, here is the header, sender's name, receiver's name, and here is the content of the mail. Okay. And here is an example of how a client and server communicate with each other. This communication, when you see this S indicates that is the server which is communicating, C indicates the client. So, what does this say? 220 is again number which indicates a message for the client, and this is for us. Okay, it says obs.com, that means I am obs.com, SMTP server, I am ready. Client says hello abcict.org. This guy says hello obs.com, I am glad to meet you. Now, you can understand now that is quite human like communication. And this guy says is mail from Lara at this place. This guy says okay, Lara is acceptable to me. He says recipient is Gail. He says fine, he is acceptable to me. The other one, in fact, this mail is being sent to more than one recipient. So, after Gail you have Ram Naresh also. So, he is receiving a mail, he is okay. Okay, so that means that also is acceptable. And third person is Chandrapal. Now, this guy says at OBS there is no guy called Chandrapal. So, what should I do? I should continue, that is the point here. See, though it says 550 no such user here is not enough communication, it just says that this guy does not exist. But in case of any one of the recipient exists, this process will not stop and continue. When it says data, it says that now I am into a serious business, I would like to send mail. Okay. So, the server says end data with crlf dot crlf, means two blank lines and the middle line with dot. Okay. Now, it sends all the information from this thing to this, CC this, subject, okay, and hello guys, all this, fine. When he says dot, you can say Lara carries written line feed dot this line. So, when you have this line, it indicates that the mail is over. Then server understands that the mail is over, so he will says 250, okay, I am fine, the mail so far is great. Then the client says quit. Okay, here there is no role reversal. I said that happens. Okay, if the client becomes server and server become client, if server has some mails, obs.com has some mails for this thing, abcict.org, they may reverse their roles. Here there is no such case. So, client say quit and this guy server says fine, okay, bye. Okay. So, here is an example of the content, how content is stored in a file, in a message, okay, a mail. So, from to date, it reminds you of something. These are headers actually. So, the headers and the values which we have looked at in the previous case is also applicable here. Please understand, it is something which is almost universal in the internet protocols, headers and values. It becomes so easy for a protocol to communicate with any other protocol. So, the same thing is used here. Not only that, it uses almost in some cases almost the same header. For example, date also is used at this place, okay. Date and few others. Okay. Let us see this. From to date, my version, now we will understand what this is in a short while. Content type, it says what is the content? The content say image slash JPG. So, this is called type, this is called subtype. What kind of type and subtypes exist? There are quite a few. Okay. So, we will be looking at some of them. Okay. Content transfer encoding is called base 64. Now, this is again quite interesting thing. When SMTP was designed, all ASCII values were being transferred using 7-bit ASCII. So, SMTP was designed in the beginning, as I said, this is one of the oldest protocols. So, when SMTP was designed, it was transferring only 7-bit ASCII value, it was not doing anything else. When later on people started sending other things other than text, SMTP had a problem. If you worked with very old versions of mail long back, you probably have seen if somebody has sent you a mail with image or something, you get some strange characters printed on the screen, because many mail servers and clients were not equipped with handling anything other than 7-bit ASCII. So, the later versions, okay, either you will have to replace SMTP or later versions had to be different than SMTP, or some way of converting image into 7-bit ASCII was to be designed. So, designers went for the second approach. So, everything other than 7-bit ASCII needed to be converted into 7-bit ASCII, and the two basic methods were used. We will be looking at both methods. One is called base 64, the other one is called quoted printable encoding. So, either of them is used, and that image or whatever, anything other than 7-bit ASCII is converted to 7-bit ASCII. So, the receiver will receive 7-bit ASCII anyway, and receiver will convert that thing back. If receiver cannot convert that thing back, the user will see strange characters. Sometimes when the mails bounce back and all that, you probably will have seen those strange characters being shown, and you will probably are surprised what is this. Many a times it is the attachment that you type or whatever. Okay. So, that is content transfer encoding. Here it is base 64, as I said there are two methods used, one of them is base 64. Okay. After a blank line, again you may remember that in HTTP also we had a blank line before the data starts appearing. A very easy way of telling the receiver that now onwards is the data. Here it is the image, because you are sending image in JPEG form. So, the binary data for the image starts from here, and there is no image here, actually is a base 64 7-bit ASCII value. So, the receiver will have to convert this thing back to image. Okay. So, that is an important thing. What kind of types and subtypes are possible? Here are types which are well known. Now, internet has not added any type letter, but there are many subtypes possible, thousands of subtypes today are possible. Text is the text information, image is obviously image, audio is recorded sound, video is video. Please understand that conventional video communication requires both video and audio to be transferred. So, it is not video only, it is video plus audio. Application is any binary file like a Word doc or executable or anything, okay. Any other any 8-bit ASCII value can be application. Multipart is something which contain more than one parts. For example, somebody is sending you a mail with an image as well as some text, or song with text and something. So, it has more than one part. When you forward a mail, it is sent as a message. So, a forwarded mail or a reference link. Okay. Sometimes you have a link. Okay. So, if you click a link, you can open something. Okay. And again X dash indicates a non-standard header. So, here are some standard headers, and anything starts with X dash, again very similar to HTTP that we have seen before. Okay. Now, let us try to see the comparison between SMTP and HTTP. Okay. Both of them connect and transfer files. Okay. HTTP 1.1 used persistent connection. So, there is a client, there is a server, then the transfer file. The other difference is that sender and receiver establish connection and send information. Okay. But then SMTP only sends 7-bit ASCII. even if any other thing is there, we will convert that thing to 7-bit ASCII and send everything in the single stretch. In case of HTTP, we will send multiple objects differently, okay, but we will not convert, that is the difference. Okay. HTTP needs separate fetch for each object, SMTP needs a single fetch. Okay. SMTP, now this is again an important difference. SMTP fetches data, client, the browser fetches data from the web server, the SMTP client sends the data. Now, that is the push model. Okay. SMTP obviously, because it sends everything into 7-bit, it needs something to convert those types into 7-bit. That thing is called multipurpose internet mail extension. So, MIME. Okay. So, that is the technology which is used. HTTP transfers every object individually. Okay. Now, how ASCII an image is converted into a base 64 encoding, and you can see that here the data, the complete data is divided into 6-bit content. So, okay, this is the first 6-bit, this is the second 6-bit, third 6-bit and so on. Now, that means every character is given a typical number. It includes lowercase letters, uppercase letters and numbers. So, total 64 values and few other characters, total 64 total values. So, based on that, this 6-bit sequence, total 64 values include all uppercase, lowercase, numbers and few other characters. So, accordingly they are converted. When they are converted, their ASCII values are taken and then sent over. Okay. So, basically a 6-bit value is converted to an 8-bit value. So, what is the significance of converting an 8-bit into a value into a 6-bit value? See, you can see that here are zeros, but then here it is 1. Okay. So, there are, and here you will find that there is no data which begins from 0, is always, though it shows 8-bit, is always 7-bit ASCII. SMTP was a very old protocol, as I said, and was designed with 7-bit ASCII. In those days only 7-bit ASCII values were used. So, first bit is the client and server assumed that thing to be 0, and that is one more thing. Why can't we replace that SMTP client and have a new type of client? Because there is a simple reason, because there are hundreds of SMTP clients and servers installed across the world and they are working for years now. If we devise a new protocol, install that new protocol, probably it will have hundreds of other issues. We do not really know. In our computer industry, most of the things do not really work. Very few things work for a reasonably long period, and SMTP is one of them. So, even though it is insufficient, it is not able to handle this 8-bit ASCII, which is the demand of the day, all of us are continuing with it, because it is something which is working solution. We want anything other than 7-bit ASCII to be converted into 7-bit ASCII and sent. In this case, remember what we do is we convert every 6 bits into 8-bit. That means I have 60 bytes of data, I am converting into 80 bytes, I am bloating it, I am increasing the size. So, people will not like this, because it will consume more network bandwidth, and obviously my mail will reach slower to the other end. However, despite all these problems, it is a working solution and we prefer working solution, and that is the reason why we are continuing with SMTP, and we expect this the slower solution to continue functioning. We have devised method like MIME, we have seen internet mail extension, where we convert other than ASCII values into 7-bit ASCII value. So, that is the reason, that is the philosophy of internet and the philosophy of the entire computer industry, that I believe each one of us must clearly understand. So, something which is working is sacred in our industry, and we would like to make sure that we will continue with it, and even if there has to be some change, something to be improved, then we will attach it. One more similar example is I can quote is about TCP. TCP is one of the best protocols ever designed and is one of the best solutions to transport layer problems. But then there is a serious need today about security. Whatever you are sending should be encrypted and whatever whoever is sending should be authenticated. Now, that TCP does not provide. So, the designer had options, throwing away TCP and have a new protocol, or running something on top of TCP is kind of a patch top and making sure that using that patch TCP becomes more start providing security. The people use that SSL and TLS that we mentioned about in the previous module basically is designed to provide or make TCP work with this security solution. We do not change TCP, we would like to augment TCP with additional features. Let it be slower, because there are the things happening in two different phases, obviously slower than something happening in the first single phase. But then it is very critical for us, because we do not want to change something which is running, and that is a point here. Okay, let us talk about this base 64 encoding again. So, 6 bit is converted into 8 bits. Okay. Another this thing is called quoted printable encoding. Now, it is 8 bit case. Now, most of them are 7 bit ASCII and there is only one character which is non ASCII, then quoted printable encoding is used, because rest things are copied as it is. You do not convert 6 bit into 8 bits, but whenever there is non ASCII, it is converted into 3 parts. You can see that 1100 is the first part, 1011 is the second part, 1100 is basically hex C and 1011 is hex B. So, what does it do? It will convert this thing into C and convert this thing into B and precede it by equal to, indicating that this is converted. Okay. So, instead of one character, we convert that thing into 3 characters. So, this method is good only if very few characters are non ASCII. Okay. Current mails have a very interesting feature called filters and spam. So, SMTP also, this is not provided by SMTP, this is provided by user agents, and we have already seen. So, you can differentiate incoming mails based on subject line, sender's name, some specific words in the body, and you probably have used Yahoo and Gmail filters also. Spam is one popular filter which actually is quite interesting, is doing quite interesting job, is using AI techniques and solving the problem of spam mails. This filtering spam mails into a separate folder, many a times it is called bulk folder or whatever, unwanted or whatever. Okay. So, that is our spam folder. Okay. With that note, let us conclude this module. We have looked at an interesting protocol called simple mail transfer protocol. That protocol happens in 2 phases. First phase delivers mail to the receiver's mailbox. In the second phase, receiver gets that mail using POP3. Okay. So, it is a 2-tier approach which works because sender and receiver does not require to be online at the same point of time, which is the need of this particular case. So, that is the reason why this protocol is designed that way. The protocol contains 3 parts. One is user agent, message transfer agent which transfers messages from the sender to the receiver, and the mail itself. Okay. And we have seen that SMTP defines standard for mail as well as standard for sending and receiving. Okay. And we have seen all that. At the end, we have seen how SMTP converts non ASCII value into ASCII value using 2 different methods, and because SMTP is designed in a very old fashion, it only can send 7 bit ASCII, but we have designed ways to convert anything other than 7 bit ASCII into 7 bit ASCII and send across using SMTP. With that note, we will conclude this module. Thank you, friends.